How are you doing? It's Boxing Day on the allotments. Let's have a look at the compost. At least something's growing. Look at all that steam! Whee! I was going to turn this heap today, so I always start on the two outside heaps and then throw them both into the centre. I was going to throw it into the centre today, but it's still actually cooking. Let me show you. And these are homemade hot bins. So they are just simply 4 pallets with a couple of inches of kingspan on the inside of them. And you can see that this compost is already looking beautiful. It really is. Already a lovely, rich, dark colour. Let me get the fork. Stick the fork in there and have a look a bit further down. Yeah, further down, we've almost got compost now. Further down, look at that, isn't it not beautiful? So yeah, rather than, the bottom 12 inches of this is probably good enough to use now. But I'm not going to use it today, as I say. What I'm going to do is just add to it, actually. So I may as well keep filling this, as it's really still so active. I may as well just keep adding to it. You can see all the mycelium and fungus growing in here. And this heap has been incredibly active. So I think simply because everything in here has gone through the wood chipper. Look at the fungal activity in there. It's superb, it is. And I put these are some sprout and broccoli leaves I put in yesterday. Look at them already. They have completely been mullered by the heat. So yeah, I'm just going to add to it today. Let's keep this fella cooking rather than starting another one for the bits of additions that I've got to put in. Let's keep this one active. Well, what I've got here is a lot of veg from home, peelings and bits and bobs. I mean, a lot of this stuff is storage stuff. So a lot of these are vegetables I've been storing. Bits of kitchen scraps. This is some yakon that has gone really a little bit too soft to eat. So the yakon, I'll just slice it up a little bit. It breaks down quicker. The smaller the particles are when you're composting, the better and faster it will compost. These apples, although the storage apples, they have gone soft, but you're better just breaking them up. They'll compost so much better if you just break them up a bit. More yakon there. The yakon has done really well this year. It's been fantastic. You could actually still eat that. It's perfectly edible. But I've got plenty of yakon, so I don't need to keep the softer bits. So that's the yakon. Some more kitchen scraps here. This was a big courgette that was in storage. It's gone really nasty. Oh my god, it's disgusting. Oh, that can go in as well. It's got soup coming out of it. Again, chop it up best I can. Some more soft yakon tubers, and actually not too bad them. I expect this stuff by tonight will be cooking away. If you're interested in, if you do any composting yourself, you really should build these hot composting bins. You make really good compost in months rather than years. Yeah, they're really fast at composting, they're fantastic, yeah. What else have I got now? Got a few carrot tops and bits and bobs here from an allotment neighbour. Chop all these up. You can literally put anything in this heap. Anything at all, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of myths go around about composting, but anything that is organic, has lived or grown, can be composted. It does not matter, it really doesn't. The beauty of a hot bin is that any diseases, any pests that are on the vegetable matter or matter that you're putting in, they'll be killed by the heat. It gets up to around 70 centigrade in this box, and it stays at that temperature for weeks and days and weeks. So anything in here just gets completely killed, especially plant diseases and pests. So I have put, people have brought me cabbages and collies and broccoli full of club root. I just cut them up and chuck them in. There's no danger of transferring that disease because this bin gets so hot. I regularly put nettles in it, dock leaves, bindweed, roots, everything goes in here. You can put cooked food in as well if you want to. If you wish to put cooked food in, you can put it in here because it will break down. It's a good idea not to put too much cooked food in, but it's okay to sort of put one of them buckets there of old cooked potatoes and bits and bobs, spread it out. It will do absolutely no damage, danger whatsoever. So say this is from an allotment neighbour, and there's a lot of, the trouble is that people tend to bring a lot of soil up when they're weeding. So that's the one thing that will kill a hot composting bin. Too much soil like this. So they pull that up, there's all that soil there on them roots, and that will kill the composting bin, that soil. So that's the only thing I'm very careful about, too much soil like that. I tend to sift through it when people drop me stuff off. I tend to sift through the bag and shake as much soil as I can off the roots. Trouble is in December, the trouble in December this time of year is you're struggling really for green stuff. There's a lot of brown, there's a lot of dead, dying and decaying matter, but not much green material. So it's the greens that really make your hot compost bin active and heating up. Of composted material this time of year is this, which is horse manure and horse bedding. Now the bedding in this case is shavings, which aren't as ideal as straw would be. As long as you don't put too much in, too many shavings that is, they will actually break down, the shavings. But if you put a big thick mass of them in, they'll sort of sit there and they'll rely more on fungal activity to break them down than bacterial activity. So you don't want too many layers of horse manure in. If you can get horse manure with straw, whether you use straw as bedding, fill your boxes up with that. It's wonderful stuff. The best stuff you can get. I don't want this horse manure to solidify into a sort of compress into a solid block, because it might restrict the bacterial activity and fungal activity a little bit. So I don't want it setting as an actual layer. So I'm going to even it all out. And then I'm going to mix it in a little bit with those sub layers like that. That little bit of soily compost that went in. As long as you mix it and blend it, it won't form a solid layer of wood shavings. And already that bacteria and fungus will get to work on that almost straight away as you mix it in and put some oxygen and air into that surface. That bacteria will just literally take off. and go crazy tonight. We came back tomorrow. The amount of steam this will be giving off will be ridiculous, because again it'll climb up to about 70 centigrade overnight. It happens so fast, it really does. Thought I spotted a worm then. I was going to save him from cooking, although I think the worms will travel down through the heap if it starts getting too hot into the colder layers at the bottom. That's kind of all I've got really to put on the heap today. I am going to a friend's farm who's got an active compost heap. It's a cold heap, it just rots down naturally. I'm going to go and get a ton bag full of the straw and the horse muck, and I'm just going to keep topping this bin up now over these colder months, just to keep this heat really active and hot. And the great thing about composting horse manure in a hot bin is it kills all the grass seed, because the horses, although the horses aren't out in the fields mostly this time of year eating the grass, there's very little grass seed for them to eat. The hay that they're eating will be loaded with grass seed, and that passes straight through the horse, comes out in the manure, and that you will germinate grass on your allotment. In March time, March, April, the grass seed that was in that manure will start to grow, so you will find an awful lot of grass growing when you use naturally composted horse manure that has not generated any real heat. But in a hot bin, wonderful. It breaks down so fast and kills all that grass seed. Well, in this bin here, this compost has been here about three or 4 weeks. This has been in here, and it came out of the centre bin. So this compost has been made this year, probably ended up in here 3 or 4 weeks ago. 2 months previous to that, it was green material. So this is how fast hot composting kind of works, and you would not believe the amount of worms in this. It's literally a worm farm. Look at these guys here. There are just millions and millions of worms in this stuff. It's absolutely beautiful, it is. Beautiful stuff. Worms love it, they're getting in and breaking it all down. It's a little bit twiggy, little bits of twig, but the twigs are really soft. They've just about survived the composting process, but there's nothing really left of them, you know. That looks like it was a little bit of an onion or something there. That was probably a whole onion, that. And if you, like I say, if you put vegetables in whole, they do just about survive the composting process. But, you know, they're done. They're absolutely done, you know. That's why it's better to just chop them in half, and you don't get that then at all. But during the summer, I was so busy filling this with compost that just everything just sort of gets thrown in. So I'm now starting to use this compost on the beds. To say, this bin was completely full to here. So there's a cubic metre of compost here, which was made started about 3 to 4 months ago. This was started. It's now compost, and it's now going on the bed. So in total this year I have put 2.5 cubic metres of compost onto the allotment this year. And you can see here, this is the compost. There are little bits of twigs and sticks in it. These are probably raspberry canes. So I get stuff from other allotment holders, and this all went in just before I got my chipper. So this sort of stuff, although it is completely exhausted, there's nothing left of it. It just breaks to pieces. See, like that. I don't put pieces like this in anymore. I don't have to with having the chipper. So all this sort of stuff gets chipped now and broken down into what you saw in the hot bin that I'm currently using. So this is gorgeous compost, it really is. Look at that, there's someone's greenhouse clip there. I've got a greenhouse, so yeah, you always find the bits and bobs that people put in the compost, they always come out, and the compost goes black. More worms, bits of silver paper, rubbish. I just filter it out. So let's go and get that put on the bed. What I'm actually doing with this compost at the moment, I'm kind of reclaiming these beds. What's happened is, I think, because I put so much wood chip between these beds, I initially put about that much compost on the beds, and then I topped it up with wood chip. And I think what's happened is the wood chip, as it's compressed, has pushed sideways, and it's sort of pushed into the beds. Also the pheasants, the blackbirds, the partridge, all the birds that are around are constantly scratching at the edge of these beds, so they're pulling the compost onto the wood chip paths, and as a result of both of them, the beds have just got narrower and narrower. So I'm trying to reclaim the beds a bit and narrow the paths down. That's about 20 inches, which is perfect for a path. When I initially set this up, they were 4-foot paths and 2-foot beds, but the paths have kind of made almost 3 foot wide, and now the beds are about 3 foot to 3'6", some of them. So I'm just reclaiming more growing space from the paths, and all I've been doing is pulling the wood chip off the sides here. I don't need to go right the way down, because a lot of this wood chip that's in these beds is now actually compost. So I'm just pulling the drier chip, or the less rotted chip, off the top on each side, and that compost out of that hot bin is just being put on the sides of these beds to sort of reclaim the beds, so we can get back to having 4-foot beds again. So that is all I'm doing, just dumping that, extending the beds out a little bit and narrowing the path down. I like to do this time of year because the frost and the rain will help further break this compost down. Plus the worms. These beds, these wood chip paths are full of big, massive lobworms that are going deep into the ground, into the clay layer. They're moving through it, and they'll get into this compost and really help break it down and pull it into the soil. You can see it's not taking too much compost. Every path is getting about a wheelbarrow full of compost, plus we're introducing all those new worms into these beds. And my robin, he's going to be full tonight because he's busy. Yeah, my robin is busy helping himself. He really is. That's lovely. I'll just rake that wood chip back a little bit. Yeah. And that is it. Paths reinstated. Beds reinstated. I'll actually show you one of the beds I've just done. This is one of the paths I've just reinstated. You can see the width of it there now. This is all compost I put on about 10 days ago. You can see it's almost part of the bed now. I'll show you a path which I haven't done yet, and that is this one, so you can see how much wider this path has become. It's getting on for 3 foot wide now. So again, I'm going to pull these sides in here to about 20 inches or so. There. And then I'll add compost to the edges of these beds. I'll just show you this wood chip, which has been down now for nearly 2 years. So this is wood chip that's been under the paths for 2 years, and this is the wood chip that's lower down in the paths. As you can see, it's beautiful and crumbly. There are still a few lumps in it like that, still a few hard pieces of wood, but the vast majority of it is like that. And as I say, there's just worms everywhere in it. There is absolutely full of worms. So they're doing a great job of breaking it down. Anyway, let's give you a quick tour around the plot. So we've got a bed there that had white mustard in. I just put that fleece on, try and protect it a bit from the frost, which it would have done, but we had a couple of really cold nights. It went down to -7, 8 or 9 degrees here, and it just absolutely killed the mustard. But the worm activity now in that bed is tremendous. All the little worms have come up and they're all feasting on that mustard. Here we have rye grain. So I've put this rye grain in at the end of the last crop, which was French beans. That would have been about September, and the rye is actually really growing now, really strong, because the temperatures have come up now. It's about 7 or 8 degrees today, so the rye is actively growing. It would have been the places you can see there where there is no rye, that is where the pheasants and partridge have actually dug the rye up and eaten it. They've also been grazing on this stuff as well. You can see the edges are all pecked away. I don't mind that so much because this has just been grown as a cover crop, and come March this stuff should be maybe 2 or 3 foot tall in March, and I will literally put my hori in at root level and just scythe them roots and stems off on the base. That rye will all then be going to the hot compost bins. The roots will be left into the ground, they'll rot away and provide food for the worms and for the next crop that goes in, which I think will be sweet corn. More rye here. This rye, some of these rye beds have really suffered from the pheasant and partridge damage. This one in particular did. They just went to town on this bed for some reason. We've still got a few little beetroots in here, so we don't need to harvest them yet. The frost, they're still perfectly edible, still perfectly good. I believe it's always better to have something growing in the ground, or something that's got its roots in the ground, rather than just having bare soil. It's much better to have some root and something in the soil. There's a couple of little bits of kale here that have just survived. I cut them off and they've re-sprouted again. So I've got little bits of kale still coming. These were crop of field beans which were doing really well until that really cold frost came. That 7-8 degree frost, and I don't know why. You can maybe explain why that side of the bed it completely killed them, and this side of the bed it bent them over, but they're still actually growing. It's so bizarre that, isn't it, how it can just destroy one side of a bed and leave the other side of the bed okay. I don't understand it at all. I'm just thinking if it's maybe something to do with this compost layer that I laid in this bed before those frosts came. I think it has. So adding that half a barrel full of compost on the edge of these field beans somehow helped this side survive. I don't know how, I don't know why or how, but on that side, that's the bed I'm filling now with that compost. That side of the bed is completely dead. I don't know. If you know why, please tell me. That's some broccoli. There's a green, it's actually calabrese that's growing there. There's three plants survived. We got some really bad wind that completely mashed most of them, but anyway, 3 of them survived. There we have more rye grain growing in that bed. More rye grain in this bed here as well. Rye in that bed. I went big on rye this year. Still a few sprouts left here. They've really, so we weren't sort of feeding on these, so the sprouts themselves have all sort of, they're going now. You see what's happened to them, the sprouts themselves have started opening up. You probably still could eat these, you know, they're perfectly edible. But we had sprouts yesterday for Christmas dinner. The upper ones are still okay on these. There's still a few sprouts. I'll probably start to pick these now. Clean them up, blanch them and freeze them. This was the parsnips. We had beautiful parsnips yesterday. That's the sort of size of the parsnips we got out. There was some bigger than that. The roots are about a good foot long, and I really do need, you know, my hori to get these out. The roots are a good foot deep. There's only about 10 inches of soil here on top of a solid clay layer, and these parsnips have pushed into that clay layer about 8 or 9 inches. I could not believe it. So yeah, we've got about 9 inches at the bottom of this parsnip growing in clay. More parsnips. I've actually pulled the giants out. The giant parsnips have all come out now, so there's just these smaller ones left. We've got a few spring onions here in this bed, which we never got to harvest, so I've just literally left them in as a gain. It's always better to have something in the ground. There's some leeks there. I don't know really why I grow leeks, because I never eat them. But it's something to have in the ground, isn't it? This is my garlic. So I've had to net the garlic again, because the pigeons, the partridge and the just kept digging them up. So the garlic's coming up, it looks happy. The spaces you can see where there is no garlic, that's where it's been pulled out by the partridge and pheasant. We have more garlic growing at home now in pots, So I'm going to interplant this bed and just fill out these empty spaces. There's a whole row of garlic there at this end that's just gone missing. Completely gone, all been pulled out. Yeah, they're pest birds, they really are. In fact, you can see right there, that is partridge poo. So they're still trying to get in. This is my carrots. These are a winter variety of carrot called Eskimo. I've actually got some garlic here, which I'd left in the ground, and it's actually regrowing again. So that's second year garlic grown off one clove. These carrots are called Eskimo. Absolutely beautiful. They are actually a blunt-ended carrot, but there's no carrot root fly on them. None whatsoever. They're perfectly clean and they are beautiful because they're good to down to about -4 or 5, these. And as I say, it went down to -8, but these didn't suffer because I did put that black netting material on top of them and it just protected them from the worst of it. So they've all made it through and they are gorgeous carrots. Yeah, we had them yesterday. So that's the netting that I just put over the top. Yeah. Got enough carrots in this bed, I think, to last us until the next crop of carrots comes ready. That's a better one. You can see it's a lovely blunt end on it. These carrots have actually started growing again now because I did take all the tops off them, and as you can see they're regrowing. They're still beautifully edible, sweet and gorgeous, and it's okay to put them back into the ground like so, because that is the best place to store them. And the slugs haven't bothered these. I was really conscious about the slugs damaging these carrots this year, so I went to great lengths putting beer traps in, laying boards on the sides of the beds every day, turning the boards over every morning, collecting all the slugs and disposing of them. So we've more or less cleared this bed of slugs. This net, this micro weave net, has been on these carrots since they were planted. These carrots were planted end of July, beginning of August time. As I say, Eskimo, planted about 1 foot apart, spread thinly as I can and then thinned out. Beautiful. Spinning round there, there's got the purple sprouting broccoli, which got really battered by the wind. Look at the state of them stems, guys. Yeah, it got really battered by the wind, it did. So they all look a bit raggy, but I'm hoping, anyway, the tops look good. I'm hoping we'll get some nice broccoli florets off them in February, March time. Most of these beds are empty. This again is more garlic that's come up from a single clove. I'll show you. Oh no, that could have been spring onion actually. That could have been spring onion. No, it's not. Yeah, that is garlic. Garlic, leftover garlic, is growing again. A few more of the parsnips here. I think there are some really big parsnips in this bed. Not really touched these yet. These ones. So here are the rest of my winter parsnips there. You can see the size of these ones. Absolutely massive. They're a good 4 or 5 inches across them. Again, spring onion and garlic coming up there. Go to the end here. These are 2 relatively new beds this year. This was planted with field beans, which the frost completely destroyed. I've just put some of this fresh horse manure on this bed. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to put in this bed this year. I haven't decided, so this horse manure is just laid on the surface It did have mustard on, which the frost killed. There's little patches of mustard still growing. So I'm just going to let this rot down into the ground now. Come March, April time, this will completely gone. The worms will have pulled it in. This bed has been composted. You can tell by all the little sticks and twigs on top of it. Again, I planted rye in this bed, and this got massacred by slugs, by partridge and pheasants. But I'm confident that it will kind of regrow again. It usually does. And that's it, guys. That's basically a look at the allotment. One thing left to show you, my mushroom farm in the polytunnel. Look at these guys. We have our own mushroom plantation. No, I'm not stupid enough to eat them. They may well be edible, I do not know, but I wouldn't take the risk. They're growing everywhere, and that's a sign of a lot of fungal activity in the soil, which is just a good thing. It's a good thing to have. This is interesting. All this spawn, all the spore, these white patches or this grey patches that's under the mushrooms, that's all the spore that's fallen out of the veins underneath. I love seeing stuff like that. It's really interesting. And these mushrooms are just coming up everywhere on this side of the bed, on this side of the tunnel. Interestingly, on this side of the tunnel, there is none. There is no mushrooms. So, you tell me how that works, because I don't know. Got some claytonia in there, a little patch of claytonia, winter purslane, and I've just composted up under the vine, my little vine, which at the beginning of this year, come March, April time, was 4 inches tall. He's now made it all the way up there to the top, and he's heading to the front of the tunnel. So I need to fix him. I'm going to fix him the other side. There's a little vent there that opens, so he's getting fixed up there. I'm going to put some struts, wooden struts across here. Across these here, I'll be putting wooden struts up, and he's going to grow over the top of them. And that is the tunnel. It's all sort of set up now, ready to get all the seedlings started in the next month or two. So that is it from the veg plot on Boxing Day. I will see you in the new year. I'm hoping I'm going to do a lot more videos on the allotment this next year. I just love being here and I love growing. So Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year. Me signing out. Bye for now.